quick here. All right. Heads up, because you are in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit KJ Green. We're live in living color, black by popular demand. You are in the Hoodwood. Another live episode. And you say, why are we doing another live episode? It's because I'm having technical difficulties with my editor. So, instead of skipping a show and skipping the picks, we'll do a really truncated version of the show and we'll just go from there. And there's been some things that have happened since I taped the show, which usually I tape the show on Wednesday and I usually edit it and have it ready for distribution on Thursday or Friday. But there were a couple of things that happened. Of course, I was going to talk about the U.S. being bounced from the World Cup by the Netherlands. Well, the Netherlands have also been put out of the World Cup in the quarterfinals. Also, Croatia knocks out my initial pick for the World Cup, Brazil, on penalty kicks after a 2-2 draw that went the full time and then 30 minutes of overtime. So, to keep as current as possible, I'm doing this show live. So, we also had other teams that got bounced. Croatia got beat by Japan in penalty kicks. Spain got the gate by a scrappy Moroccan squad. France and England are going to go head up for a quarterfinal showdown. Brazil got bounced. Argentina struggled, but it's just so wild in the World Cup. I had to go live and get the headlines out to you. Now, next week, we're going to do two shows. Half of the show is going to it's going to be 8 picks in one show. I'm going to talk about CFP and a few other things. It's going to be kind of I wouldn't say a mini show, but it's going to be a little bit shorter than my normal show, which runs between 45 and 60 minutes. It's going to be about, I would say about half that, maybe 30 at tops. But this week, we're going to do the full slate of picks. Now, one of the other things that I had said that about, if you were tuning into the live show yesterday, I did a live pick then, the Raiders and the Rams. Well, I picked the Raiders. Slap me upside the head anytime I decide to trust Josh McDaniels from this point on, because the Raiders blew another double-digit lead. Now, there were people who were a little perturbed by Josh McDaniel not going for it on 4th and 1 on his own 40, which if he had gotten the first down, that pretty much would have been the game. They punted the ball, put the ball at the 2-yard line. But as a friend of mine once had noted, sending me to a Twitter, which you can send to me at tweets at all the times at Hoodwood Sports, you knew that you were going to start rooting for the Rams when the Raiders were doing the gritty after the ball was down the 2-yard line. It just seemed like you don't tempt the football gods like that. Baker Mayfield, for crying out loud, drives the Rams 98 yards in just under a minute and a half to win the game. Say what you want about Baker Mayfield. I think sometimes he's a petulant punk, but in that instance, he was a G. He was a pimp. He got the job. Let's think. Monday, he asked for his release from Carolina. Thursday, he's winning a game for the Rams. Crazy world, I'll tell you that much. So I am 0-1 already in my picks. Now, we will get to the picks here in a second. I do want to touch on the fact that the CFP, did they get it right with Georgia, Michigan being no-brainers for the CFP, and then the other picks being TCU and Ohio State? I think they got it right. I think they got the best of the one-loss teams here. We'll preview, take a more in-depth look at the matchups, strengths, weaknesses, who I think will move on to the national championship. We'll do a full in-depth bet right around New Year's, right? Because game is on New Year's Eve. The early game is TCU and Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl. The late game being Ohio State, Georgia in the Peach Bowl. And I will do more of an in-depth preview of both those games here before the actual games kick off. So you'll want to come back for another Sports from the Hoodwood here in a future episode. That said, let's get into the week 14 picks. I'm going to go through this. I wouldn't say fast, but I'm going to go through it faster than I normally would. Now, keep in mind, last week, week 13, really weird week. I shouldn't have been surprised with the outcomes of the games. Cincy beating KC wasn't a real surprise, even though I did pick Kansas City. I should not have picked Tennessee to beat Philly in Philly. That was a dumb pick. And then Jacksonville will not be picked by the scribe anytime more this season, the way they shamed themselves in Detroit. Detroit dropped 40 on them. Detroit, for crying out loud. So we also had a tie game, 20-all tie between the Giants and the Commanders. And what the NFL does in its infinite wisdom? They flex the rematch next week to prime time. Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't. Again, submitted for your perusal, review, and approval are this week's picks. I'm not like doing like I did some of my mailers. I sent out just the picks. I'm not going to do that. I won't do that to you. But we will go through the picks kind of quick. Browns, Bengals. The Browns are 5-7. The Bengals are 8-4. Game being played at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. Bengals are 6-point favorites. By the way, if you still bet the lines that are being provided, you're on your own, because I don't pay bookies. The odds are being provided courtesy of ESPN for entertainment and comparison purposes only. I stress that because I don't want somebody saying that I'm trying to be a modern day version of Jimmy the Greek and saying that, oh, I got inside tips on bets, because I don't. I'm just reading off the lines as they were presented to me. Now, last week, Browns defeated the Texans 27-14. The Bengals defeated the Chiefs 27-24. Last time these two teams met, Bengals were 1-4-5. The Browns were looking inept. The Bengals had the swagger on their side. The Browns were looking for some sort of spark. The first game was played on Halloween, and it was a house of horrors for the Bengals. The Browns throttled the Bengals and cast serious doubt on the legitimacy as their status as an AFC elite team. Now, in the rematch, the Bengals now come in winners of 4-5 again, and their only loss being to the Browns. Now, the Browns aren't looking as near as inept, as they won their last two at home. But I'm looking at the Bengals as being solid favorites, but something just doesn't seem right. Yes, Joe Burrow has a swagger. Yes, Jamar Chase is playing like a beast. Yes, the twin-headed running game of Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon are making things really hard. But the defense still has yet to really turn in a slam bang performance. Yes, they stopped Derrick Henry a couple of weeks ago. I know that. But the Browns have had the Bengals number. And I hope I'm wrong. This is one because I really hope I'm wrong, because I have no beef against the Bengals. But Cleveland's the upset of the week. So let's move on. 7-5 Jets take on the 9-3 Bills at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. The Bills are 9.5-point favorites. Last week, the Bills defeated the Patriots 24-10, while the Jets lost to the Vikings 27-22. The Bills are rightfully wary of the downstate opponents, having taken crushing in their last meeting, but I think the Bills finally have their mind right and will come back to be playing at a bruising level. They face a Jets team that could not finish the job at a close loss in Minnesota. Now, I think the Bills offense should be able to put up enough points to keep the Jets in check, though the Jets are capable of grinding out points on lengthy drives. I think being at home is the difference here for the Bills. The pick is Buffalo. Next on our quick docket, we have the 10-2 Vikings taking on the 5-7 Lions. Ford Field, Detroit, 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Lions are 2.5-point favorites. Last week, the Vikings defeated the Jets 27-22, while the Lions defeated the Jaguars 40-14. There are playoff implications in this game. The Vikings clinch the NFC North with a win. Now, The Lions stunned many people with a frightening offensive outburst against the Jags. Jared Goff looked crisp and efficient as the Lions led pretty much all the way. Now, the Vikings, despite winning 10 games, still have many doubters and continue to win games with last-second scores, late defensive stands, or other miraculous finishes. Remember the double doink in London? Is this why they're road underdogs? The Lions are a tough team to figure out, to be sure. Up 1 week, down the next, offensively savage 1 week, and just savage the next. Call me biased, but I think the Vikings find a way again to pull it out. Pick is Minnesota. Next on the docket, oh boy, the 1-10-1 Texans take on the 9-3 Cowboys at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Cowboys are 16-point favorites. That is not a misprint I'm reading. They are better than 2 touchdown favorites. Last week, the Texans lost to the Browns 27-14, while the Cowboys defeated the Colts 54-19. Hide the children, because this is going to be a brutal game. The Texans looked overmatched against a so-so Browns squad at home, asking them to go to Dallas, face a poked squad who is brimming with confidence after a frightening fourth quarter beatdown of the Colts is just downright cruel. There might be an official on standby to cover up the Texans like a ref covers up a punch-drunk boxer. This is an easy call to make. Dallas is the Hoodwood lock of the week. Next, we have the 4-8 Jaguars taking on the 7-5 Titans. Game being played at Nissan Stadium in Nashville. It's 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. The Titans are 4-point favorites. Last week, the Jaguars lost to the Lions 40-14, while the Titans lost to the Eagles 35-10. Both of these teams shamed themselves with brutal losses on the road. And while the Titans can be partially excused for getting hammered by the Eagles in Philly, the Jags had a winnable game in Detroit and let the Lions run roughshod on them. But my trust in the Titans is fading fast. I have lost any and all faith I had in the Jags. Not like I had a lot of faith in them to begin with. The Titans need to bounce back, win at home in the worst way, and they get that one here. The pick is Tennessee. Next on the docket, we have the 11-1 Eagles taking on the 7-4-1 Giants at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Eagles are 7-point favorites. Last week, the Eagles defeated the Titans 35-10, while the Giants played the Commanders to a 20-all tie. The Eagles spared the Titans no quarter in handing out an assertive beatdown, and now they head to Gotham to face a G-Men squad that is in a 3-week winless slump and have no real answers on how to get out of them. With a chance to really bury their hated division rivals, there seems to be bad blood with all the teams in division anyway, none more so of Philly and New York, they will treat the fading Giants badly. The pick is Philadelphia. Next, we have the 8-4 Ravens taking on the 5-7 Steelers at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. Last week, the Ravens defeated the Broncos 10-9, while the Steelers defeated the Falcons 19-16. Ravens are a shell of themselves, minus the dynamic Lamar Jackson, and you can best believe that the Steelers are hungry to exploit that deficiency. Kenny Pickett is still going through growing pains, but he's had enough on the ball to lead the Steelers to a pair of grinding wins. As much as I think that the Ravens are the better team, overall, trying to hold off fast-closing Bengals in the AFC North, they're basically doing it with mirrors and duct tape without Jackson. The Steelers are playing better at the moment. With a chance to hurt their despised rival, will do so in spades. I think it's Pittsburgh. Turning to the late games, we have the 9-3 Chiefs taking on the 3-9 Broncos at Empower Field in Mile High in Denver. 4:05 kickoff on CBS. The Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites. Last week, the Chiefs lost to the Bengals 27-24, while the Broncos lost to the Ravens 10-9. Chiefs dropped another duel with their rival Cincinnati. Now head to the mountains to face a Broncos team that weighs one great defensive effort after another. Broncos offense cannot and will not put up enough points to keep up with the Chiefs team, aching to take their annoyance at their growing bugaboo with the Bengals out on a team that they know is not in their class. The pick is Kansas City. Next on the docket, 6-6 Buccaneers taking on the 8-4 49ers. Game being played at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. 4:25 kickoff on Fox. The 49ers are 3.5-point favorites. Last week, the Buccaneers defeated the Saints 17-16, while the 49ers defeated the Dolphins 33-17. The Niners defense carried the day in a thrilling win over the Dolphins, but that win came at a terrible price, as Jimmy G is now out for the rest of the season with a broken foot. Brock Purdy showed why he isn't irrelevant, though he was picked as Mr. Irrelevant in the last pick of the 2022 draft, as he waded into the fray and rallied the Niners with heroic stewardship to get the win. He might be the short-term answer the Niners need to try to stay in contention. Now, they host the Bucs, whose offense is still very weak, but they seem to get themselves out of jams they invariably get themselves into having a weak offense. That offense also struggles against competent defenses that are not in their division. I know Tom Brady dominates against rookie quarterbacks. Brock Purdy was born 5 days before Tom Brady's last collegiate game. What does that say about Father Time? But I know I'm going to regret this pick, but the pick is San Francisco. Moving on, we have the 4-8 Panthers taking on the 7-5 Seahawks. Game being played at Lumen Field in Seattle. 4:25 kickoff on Fox. The Seahawks are 3.5-point favorites. Last week, the Panthers were on their bye, while the Seahawks defeated the Rams 27-23. Now, the Panthers sent Baker Mayfield packing. He asked for his release and went to LA. So Sam Darnold gets the starting nod. And it's anybody's guess who's going to back him up. Facing a solid Seahawks team at home is not the right way to start things off. Geno Smith is still playing lights out, and even with play on words, the uneven play of Kenneth Walker III will not detract from the Seahawks getting enough to grind out the win. The pick is Seattle. Sunday night game is 8-4 Dolphins at 6-6 Chargers. Game being played at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. 8:20 kickoff on NBC. The Dolphins are 3-point favorites. Last week, the Dolphins lost to the 49ers 33-17, while the Chargers lost to the Raiders 27-20. After the late collapse in the Bay, first the Finns trudged down the coast to face a maddeningly. They're just uneven. They're whatever pronoun you want to say, adjective you want to describe about the Chargers, they drive you nuts. This team lost in a puzzling loss to the Raiders, which we already know what happened to the Raiders the very next week. I'm having a hard time trusting the once sound Chargers defense, and I'm thinking that Tua Tagovailoa will have a bounce-back game and shine in primetime. The pick is Miami. Finally on the docket, the Monday night game is the 6-6 Patriots taking on the 4-8 Cardinals at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. It's 8:15 kickoff on ESPN. The Patriots are 1.5-point favorites. Last week, the Patriots lost to the Bills 24-10, while the Cardinals were on their bye. Now, the Pats had a long weekend to think about the thorough beating that they got from the Bills at home last Thursday, and now head to the desert to face a rested Cards team that are playing like they just want it to be all over. Kyler Murray's diffident play is at the head of a long laundry list of ailments that might have Cliff Kingsbury job hunting at season's end. Now, Bill Belichick, for his part, he ain't going nowhere, not until he retires, and unfortunately, neither is Mac Jones. This matchup does very little to excite, and in reality is a coin flip. Pick is New England, and there you have it. Last week, I was 9-5-1 with the lock correct and the upset incorrect. Overall, I'm 117, 75-2, 9-4 on the locks, 7-6 on the upsets. Now, final word is I make a promise to you, my loyal viewers. Things will be better. I'll have the graphics back. I'll have some music in the background, and we will have a lot more fun than trying to run through a truncated version of Sports from the Hoodwood. Show, like I said, will be broken up into 2 pieces, and we will get a lot more done in 2 shows, kind of cramming it into one, than trying to ram everything together, get things messed up, and put out a quality show, a show of lower quality than you have come to expect over the last 10 years. I've improved a lot of things with the help of Rage Pictures, and we will get better. I promise that to you. That's it from the Hoodwood. I appreciate you taking time out. If you're checking me out live, if you don't, the show will be put up for future reference, so you can check out the pics and everything. I'm KJ Green. Thank you for viewing, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, fellow sports fans, 30.